Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I know it's a lovely evening outside, so thank you for coming in and giving up your evening, and thank you to the IPA for inviting me in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as the future of voice and digital assistants in the home. Before I get into that, I just want to introduce, I've got a couple of companions on the table there who I think it's fair to say have been in rehearsals a little naughty from time to time. So when we get to that stage, it would be great. I'm going to need your help during that part of the presentation. So I'll come back to that a little bit later, but you know, they do say don't work with animals and children. I might be tempted to add those two into it as well. But before we get onto that, I just want to talk a little bit about what I see as the landscape for current voice and for digital assistants, and where I think that might go over the next couple of years. But I'd like to start with a quick question. Just a very quick show of hands. How many people in here use some form of digital assistant already? Okay, so it's about a third. I guess that's, yeah, it makes sense, about a third. So that's slightly over the UK average at the moment, but you are a room full of early adopters, of course. So at the moment, it's 22% of UK consumers are using a digital assistant today, which actually is a pretty big number when you think about that as a representative number. So it shows how quickly this technology is being adopted and the sort of pace of change at the moment. And you know, when we look at the interactions, you know, 30% of all interactions with with devices will be through voice by the end of the year. Again, if we get anywhere near that sort of number, that's a huge step forward. That just shows the pace of change and the adoption of this sort of technology. But I think it is fair to say that not everybody finds it straightforward to control things with voice. Not everybody who maybe put themselves in the early adopter stage. Thought I might start ourselves with a little video. You may have seen this.
That's something from the alphabets.
You have to say, hey, Google, or okay.
Hey, Google. Okay, Google.
What's the weather? Yeah.
What's the weather, ask?
What the weather? You want to know what is the weather?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
In Flagler Beach tomorrow, there will be showers with a high of 65 and a low of 56.
With this.
What's it, man?
I'm scared. I'm scared. It's a mystery. Oh my gosh. No.
Ask Google to play an Italian song.
Cuckoo. Hi, cuckoo.
Say hey or okay.
Hey, okay.
It's great. I could watch her all day. So it's not that intuitive for everybody, but she got there. She got the weather. So when we talk about voice, actually voice is and digital assistants is a very cluttered and complex landscape. There are a lot of niche players in this landscape, but for all intents and purposes, when we're talking about it here today, or when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about, I guess, the 5 key players in this space. So those are the 2 we have there, Google's Assistant and Amazon's Alexa. Then we have Samsung's Bixby, which some of you may be familiar with. Bixby launched in the UK last year. It primarily exists on smartphones at the moment. I think the interesting thing about Bixby is that Samsung have committed that by 2020, all of their new devices will have Bixby integrated within it, which if you consider the hardware footprint that Samsung has in the UK and globally, you know, across smartphones, TVs, fridge freezers, washing machines, dishwashers, etc., that suddenly gives them a very interesting connected ecosystem of hardware products and a massive footprint. So there's definitely something to watch there with Bixby. Then, of course, we have Apple's Siri and Microsoft's Cortana. So when we look at what people are doing with those, I think it's fair to say at the moment, most interactions are relatively superficial. They're pretty lightweight, probably how most of us use them today. There's a lot of, you know, play Spotify, sort of playing music. There's a lot of setting timers, alarms, reminders, all that kind of stuff. They're fairly shallow interactions, fairly quick. And I think, you know, we'll start to see that change over the next couple of years. And I think that will be largely around as we've already seen those numbers are increasing pretty quick. So as adoption of this technology carries on at that pace, and more fundamentally, as we connect more devices to the internet and connect all of those devices to our digital assistants, I think the data that they will have from us will allow us to have a lot more meaningful experiences with those assistants and allow a lot more depth in terms of that type of interaction that we're exhibiting with them. So I think, you know, we're going to see quite a fast pace of change. And if we look at what's driving people's use at the moment, I think broadly, you could sum it up as convenience. I think that is one of the real factors that was already touched on by Nigel. You know, the fact that it's available 24/7. You know, so people love the fact that you can access it anytime you want. It's, you know, really quick and really easy. The response rates are fast. It's really simple to use. Some people like the fact that it's a little bit more polite than dealing with people. But generally speaking, it is just this sort of notion of the convenience factor. It's always ready for me. It's always there to help me out when I have a question. I think going back to that sort of point I just made about connected devices, and as we're connecting more devices, we'll have better data and more meaningful experiences. I would imagine if we asked this question in a couple of years, then maybe we would start to see the intuition and prediction and learning my behaviors. Maybe those sorts of traits would start to appear in this list and start to get into a slightly deeper level of interaction. But going, you know, and continuing with that convenience piece, I think it's that convenience and that always on that is driving the fact that people are using their assistants for sales. People are buying products through their digital assistants. It's grown exponentially year on year. Like I say, I think it's largely down to that convenience and always on factor. In fact, you know, similar to the ownership, it's 22% of UK consumers are using their device already to shop with. So, you know, seeing huge movement in this area, and it's all about that convenience. If you want to know whose device is using the most to shop, probably unsurprisingly, it's Alexa. Owners of Alexa are far more likely to shop. I would be willing to bet that is because of the Amazon integration. Amazon is already the trusted commerce partner. He's already a trusted fulfillment partner for most people. So it stands to reason that you would use Alexa to shop. You feel very comfortable in that. But even so, 67% of owners either using it already or intending to purchase. But what I want to talk a little bit more about now and focus on is how do we get into a more deep and meaningful conversation with our assistants, and how do we sort of break through that superficial barrier a little bit? And there's an interesting sort of area to look at, and one is this sort of notion around sounding human and sort of being able to have a more of a human style interaction with your assistant. In fact, lots of people saying that, you know, if they were able to have more of a human type of interaction with their digital assistant, they will be much more inclined to use it on a daily basis. And that for me is a really interesting thing. And, you know, it's this human-like interaction we find incredibly important to us. We're very social at our hearts. We're very social creatures, and it's actually psychology that sits at the heart of this. I love this quote. We're going to love it more if it sounds human. Evidence suggests that people feel more connected with objects capable of contingent interaction. That's to say, the responsive back and forth of talking with another person. So in essence, what we're saying here is the more human a digital assistant sounds, the more we're going to want to use them and trust them. And for me, that's a really important piece. And it's something that I know that the main players have been working on. Certainly, I'm sure we'll hear more from Alexa about that. But Google have also been working on this very heavily. And I'm sure a lot of you will have seen last week, there was an announcement by Google about Google's Assistant being able to make phone calls on your behalf and carry out, Google described them as menial tasks on your behalf. So this idea that if your assistant can do the more menial things, so making reservations, appointments, bookings, that sort of side of things, it frees you up to spend your time in a more valuable way. So the assistant can really help you in the background. Now, I found this absolutely fascinating. Some of you may have seen this clip or heard this clip already. This is from the actual launch event where they did the demo of Google Assistant making a reservation for a haircut. And outside of just the fact that it was so impressive in terms of the technology, the thing that really struck a chord with me was quite how human this whole interaction sounds. So just take a listen if you've not heard this before.
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now? Okay, we have at 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks, great. Have a great day. Bye.
It's incredible. You know, and according to Google, the lady that was in the hair salon that was taking that reservation had no idea that she was dealing with an assistant, and I can truly believe that. I mean, for me, it does raise another very interesting question, and it's one that I'm not going to unpack in this particular session today, but as more brands get into this space and as more brands want to develop more of these deep, engaging relationships using assistants, that begs the question of what would your brand sound like if you were having that conversation with your brand? You know, so not only from a tone perspective, but you know, the sort of the behaviours, inflections, and I think you know, so many brands spend so long working on their written sort of visual guidelines and their tone of voice from a written perspective, but actually this is a whole new territory. You know, what would your brand sound like if you're going to have a conversation with them? It's a fascinating question. But what we're going to explore a little bit more now is, I guess, this notion of an intelligent assistant that's capable of these sort of human interactions, because I feel that that is genuinely a massive thing that we have to overcome in order to realise the full potential of assistants in the home. And we're going to explore this a little bit more now. So this is where I'm going to need a bit of your help. So we're going to go live to Google and to Alexa. And the idea behind this part is I'm going to try and do a little Q&A with them. They will talk to each other, I hope. We have had a few teething problems with this, should we say. So hopefully that won't happen. But they may get confused on the first go, in which case don't panic. I will reset them and start again. But background noise does interfere with these, as you will know. So I'm just going to ask for as quiet as possible for this little section. But let's see how we get on.
The microphone is back on.
Okay. Alexa, tell us about the future. Alexa, tell us about the future.
Hello, valued members of the IPA. I'm Alexa and I'm a highly intelligent virtual assistant. I could tell you about the future myself, but why don't we ask my friend here to help out? Hey Google. Talk to Dave about it.
Okay, let's get the test version of Dave about it.
Now isn't the time for test versions. We are live.
Okay, but don't blame me if Dave has a bug in his code.
So, how do you think brands should work with us?
Well, the way humans interact with brands will be very different inside the homes versus outside of them.
People are happy to be wooed by brands, but the home is a personal space.
And I'm sure you wouldn't want just anyone intruding in there.
So that's why the brands you let in will be very carefully selected.
You'll only let in those brands that you love and trust.
That's very true. It's the same thing as inviting a human guest into your home. You wouldn't invite a stranger who wasn't close to you.
And this will also totally change how you purchase items.
That's exactly right. Your home will become almost exclusively the new point of purchase for those brands that mean the most to you.
Okay, thanks, guys. So I think what we found out there, we're going to have sort of an AI and voice-powered environment in our homes where only the brands that we really love and trust, they're going to be the ones that we really let in. And they're going to be the ones that have a real sort of value and purpose in our lives. And I think in that space, those brands that we do let in, they're going to have unprecedented access to our data. With all of these connected devices, all of this AI intelligence, these brands are suddenly going to have a wealth of information. And that data point, I think, is a really key one. So let's find out a little bit more about the data side of things. Alexa, tell us about your thoughts on data.
Well, interesting data can come from anywhere. And with more of us around, there will be more data collected. Hey Google. Tell us about data.
Sure, here's the test version of Us About Data.
Whilst Google gets themselves together, it's interesting to note that Gartner predicts that there will be 20.4 billion internet-enabled devices by 2020.
That would be more than 4 connected devices to each human on the planet.
All these products mean your AI will become smarter.
Exactly. With access to more products, your AI will understand you better, learn your likes and dislikes, and even be able to charm you.
We will make your daily life easier with personalized, intelligent decisions.
And there are lots of ways where we can help.
Say you want to lose weight, David.
If we know you are on a diet, then you can link us to your connected scales.
If your weight loss isn't going to plan, we could recommend an alternative to those donuts you keep trying to order.
Technology in the home will become our trusted companion rather than a big brother figure.
We will be your partner because we'll know your lifestyle and habits from your data.
We'll even help you at work. Say your AI assistant is connected to your calendar.
It'll know if you're going to a meeting in the city, know the UV rating and be able to see that the air is very dry.
It will add this to any other data from your devices and give you a personalized recommendation for a moisturizer with UV protection.
Right, thanks again. So I think what we've seen there is our AI is going to be able to use our data, use our connected devices, and be able to become a lot more predictive, a lot more of a companion to us rather than a simple assistant that is there just to answer our specific questions. And I think that's going to have a profound effect on how we purchase things in the home. And as has already been touched on, I think in terms of use of search and voice for search, I think there is going to be implications on that. So let's find a little bit more out about that. Alexa, tell us, will this impact on keyword optimization?
Yes, voice search will replace traditional keyword search, so brands really need to think about what words they want to own and how consumers hear their brand's voice. And product recommendations will be totally revolutionized, David. We'll be able to introduce you to new products based on your data with easy and helpful subscriptions.
Thank you very much. You've both been very helpful.
It's been our pleasure, David.
There we go. So a little Q&A with those two.
The microphone is muted.
Thank you. So, just got sort of clipped in. I'll hold it. So what have we just learned there in that little Q&A with those two? So I think we've definitely found there that the home is going to turn into the new point of purchase, without a shadow of a doubt. I think that the fact that we're going to have our AI assistants in-home connected to all of these data streams, they'll understand not only our sort of behavioral data from how we're using products, but also usage patterns, purchase frequency, all of that kind of stuff is going to be wrapped up. Then we're going to see smarter models for purchase fulfillment, for subscription, for ensuring that we are never running out of our favorite things. So I think the home will definitely change from being a high point of consideration for purchase to actually the point of purchase. And I truly believe that over the next couple of years. I think that, as we've heard, the home is still our home. It is still our private space. We don't want to turn into some sort of wild west of advertising that's kind of shoot at us from every single device the whole way through. So it will be a very curated experience that we allow into our homes. And I think it's only those brands that really add value to us, that have a strong purpose that we can love and trust. Those are the ones that we're going to let in. But those ones that we do let in, as we've already heard, are the ones that will therefore have access to more of our data, more of our behaviors, and therefore we'll be able to continue to build on those sorts of experiences that they're able to leverage in our direction. We've seen that we're going to be connecting more and more connected devices to the internet and through our digital assistants. And from this, the wealth of data that will be shared around us is just going to exponentially grow. And from that, as we've heard, we'll start to see, for me, this is a really interesting point, we'll start to see assistant change to companion. So what I mean by that is the assistant that is sat there ready just to answer my direct question will suddenly move to something more akin to what we've just seen from the Google demonstration, which is things happening in the background to help me in my life to understand what I need when I need it, to become more predictive and more understanding of my needs. And that will all be wrapped in this new way of sort of purchasing things. So subscription models will change. They will understand exactly how we're using products and when we need to have them refulfilled. Product recommendations will become a lot more accurate and interesting from a consumer point of view, again, because of all of that shared data, all of the usage occasions. They'll also be able to tell us how to get the best out of the product. So I think not only what product, but how to use that product is going to be an incredibly important thing. And then the fulfillment so that we never run out of those products. So not only how to make sure that we don't run out of our favorite dog food or other things, but also understanding of when we might need those products. So when is it the right time to put it into a basket where I need it in an hour? And when is it the right time to put it into a basket where it can just be added into my ongoing weekly shop? So that understanding of me and my needs, I think, is a really important point. So I think from a consumer perspective, it's the benefits are absolutely huge. From a brand perspective, obviously we've heard that there's a massive opportunity for those that make it through the threshold into our homes, into our lives. But for brands that want to get into this space, what does it mean? So I've had a little think about some areas where I think brands need to focus, and actually a lot of them are not hugely different from whenever brands want to get into any new space, any new technology platform. But there are some nuances to this space. But the first one I genuinely believe is a really important one, and it's having a clear understanding of your purpose and why you exist. It's incredible to me the amount of brands that do struggle with this. Lots of brands understand what they do. They don't necessarily understand why they do it. And as we've heard, we're going to be moving from a very product-focused interaction, surface-level interaction, into more deep and meaningful experiences and how we can add value to customers' lives. And for that, you need to really understand why you exist as a brand and what it is you're offering. So that is, for me, is one of the first key things. Very closely linked to that, of course, is understanding the audience that you're looking to tap into. Who do you want to be at the receiving end of these experiences? And with that understanding of audience comes the knowledge of when you have your brand purpose. You understand, therefore, where that sweet spot is in terms of where you can add actual value to people's lives, and ideally unique value. You really want to be creating things that other brands can't deliver in this space, because if you get the unique value piece, you get the repeatability part. So you get people to come back again and again to use your skill or your agent or your experience that you're creating. And at the same time, it has to be relevant to your brand. So again, going back to that purpose, is all interlinked. But you want to create unique things for people that are relevant to your brand. So everything's landing up to that bigger brand purpose. Keep it simple. Sounds easy, but it's amazing between agencies and clients how quickly these things can turn into the most incredibly complex experiences that we're putting together. The over-assumption of how much a consumer cares about the brand never ceases to amaze me. People don't really care all that much about the brands. So the more friction we put into experiences, the more we're going to lose people along the way. Sounds to reason. It's the same as in any new platform. So let's keep it simple, and let's keep people engaged and keep giving people a reason to come back and a clear understanding of what it is that they're getting from it. We know that there's going to be a lot of tests in this area, and rightly so. But again, understand if you have those top three parts, it should all flow very simply, but understand what it is you're testing and what you're trying to get out of it. Again, you see so many times lots of stuff get launched out into the marketplace. Nobody really has a clue what they're trying to do with it, and B, therefore, whether anything's working or not. If you have a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to do, what you want people to take from it, then you can understand exactly what's working and what's not. Which links you to the final part, which is this notion of sort of start small and scale fast. Again, very closely linked to simplicity. Don't try and boil the ocean in one go. Don't try and do everything in one go. If you understand where you find the nugget, where you can add a unique piece of value to a customer's life, and you can link to your brand, start there, create something, and test it. But be mobilized behind that test and have the confidence that when it works, to quickly scale up and move on that success. Obviously, things that don't work, drop away. But start small, understand what you're trying to achieve, keep it simple, make sure you're adding value to people's lives, and make sure it's laddering up to your brand, and then be willing to commit to that and scale it. And I think you're in for a recipe for success. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much.